damn, I still don't have this figured out, and I'm 30. So when am I gonna figure it out? Am I ever gonna figure it out? Am I ever gonna be healed the way I wanna be healed? I don't know. Hey y'all, I know it has been a while since I sat down and recorded, but life be lifing and I'm going through a very hard transformational period in my life. And so today's video is just gonna be more of a life update, but also hopefully something that other people resonate with so that you feel like you're not alone. I'm also secretly hoping that somebody out there has been through this situation and they can give me a little bit of guidance just to help me get through this phase in my life, because I am very much struggling. If you follow my channel and you've tuned into my live streams, you know that I've had this anxiety about turning 30 for a long time now. I love creating content and I love everyone who connects with my channel, but the phase that I'm in right now is protecting my peace. I really understand how urgent self-care is in my life. I was pushing myself, I was on E when I would be anxious, depressed, no sleep, not really eating like that. I was still getting on here and recording and balancing my full-time job and making content for other people and trying to work out and trying to have a social life. It was just a lot to deal with. One thing that I've noticed about myself is that I stay busy as a way to distract myself from all of the things that I have going on internally. I think that many women can relate to the fact that when you turn 30, there's a lot of societal pressures to have children, to have a spouse, but also there's a sense of ageism. There's this fixation with being young and getting facelifts and getting fillers and doing all these things to maintain your beauty. And that's why anti-aging brands are a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar industry, because we fear getting old. Ageism is so ingrained in all of us that we don't even really realize it. I would get feedback like, oh my gosh, what? You're 30? You look so young. And it's like, granted, I'm thankful because it probably was intended to be a compliment, and I'm happy that people acknowledge that I put an effort to keep up with my appearance. But 30 is like old? You're expecting to see wrinkles? Like, what is a 30-year-old supposed to look like? What has society programmed us to think that a 30-year-old is supposed to look or feel like? It's like as soon as we hit 30, your perceived value just suddenly declines. And all of a sudden you go from being a pretty young adult to being geriatric overnight. You're like, yo, what the freak just happened? I think that the biggest issue for me is struggling with my sense of identity. You know, it's a very, very interesting feeling to reach the age of 30 and realize that you don't really know who you are. And then as soon as you feel like you know who you are, all of a sudden you're transforming. So it's like I'm always racing to try to catch up to being in this space where I just feel very sure of myself. And I feel like I'm almost there, but I never quite reach it. From a really, really young age, I felt like I've always had to prove myself to people, whether that be my family, friends, career, school. I've always had to go above and beyond to reach these standards that really don't even matter in the long run, right? Getting the approval of other people, getting feedback, getting validation about who I am as a person, that somehow made me feel a little bit more content in my identity because it made me feel like I had a sense of worth. And so I'm at a point in my life now where I'm truly living for myself more so than being happy with other people approving of who I am. When the clock struck midnight, I was in Mexico. There was this huge sense of regret with everything. The relationships that failed, both platonic and romantic, with good people where I knew I was at fault. The relationships that I entertained for too long where I felt like I wanted to be treated like a queen and put on a pedestal, but I let people walk over me like I was a doormat. The risk that I didn't take in my career, the education that I wish I would have pursued. It was just like this overwhelming feeling of dread. And all of my friends are telling me that turning 30 is great. It's so much better than your 20s. You're gonna feel like you know yourself. And I'm just trying to figure out when this is gonna happen. You know, maybe I'm rushing the process, but I don't see it. I just don't see it. And maybe I'm not putting myself in the right headspace. Maybe I'm just being too negative and hard on myself. But if anything, I feel more pressure now than ever, because I think that in your 20s, we give people a little bit of leeway. You're still figuring it out. You're still a youthful person. You're an adult, but people who are older than you know you're not an adult for real, because there's still so much to learn. But then it's like, if you're still figuring things out when you're in your 30s, then I think people start to look at you like you're crazy. Like, okay, what's going on? Why aren't you progressing? Why are you being stagnant? Why are you complacent? And then of course, the messaging that we see on social media, that as soon as you hit 30, your looks just suddenly take a plunge. You're not desirable. You'll never be picked over someone who's younger in their 20s. And so you have all of these different messages, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to be very positive. I'm trying to be in a good headspace. Positive affirmations, love yourself. But then you have all of these different negative messages coming from everywhere, and it's pressure. It's like when there's a dam or there's a pipe, and no matter what the climate is like, whether you're experiencing cold days, sunnier days, weathering the storm, those pipes withstand that pressure. But then after a while, if you're not doing maintenance on the pipes, self-care, loving yourself, attending to yourself, making sure you're refreshed, the pipes, they get worn down, and then they suddenly just collapse. That mental, emotional, spiritual breaking point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I really just need a change in my life. And so going back to why I took this break from social media, I love talking about issues in the Black community. I love talking about dating and relationships, but it's so hard to sit there and talk about these things when I have all of these internal battles going on, because it feels like I'm being performative after a while. I put in so much energy to maintain a positive spirit, to talk about things that aren't as pressing in my life at this moment as what I'm feeling now. And so I want to be more intentional about making my content reflect what I'm experiencing in a given moment. And I think the people who are meant to hear the message and they rock with it, they'll hear the message and they rock with it. And if you want to hear more stuff about gender wars and 50-50 and body counts and things like that, then I guess we can reconvene on the next business day. Literally on my birthday, I had already lied about my age. I was out at a club. You know, people are coming up and saying happy birthday. They asked how old I turned, and I lied and said I was still in my 20s. And that was a moment of reflection for myself, because I realized that I have an issue with letting go. And in that moment, I just wanted one more night. I wanted a little bit more time to feel like I was still in this phase of it being okay to still figure things out. And so I lied about my age. And then I lied about my age again. I did lie about my age probably 2 times when I was in Mexico, and I felt horrible about it because I don't like lying. But it's like I almost tried to recreate this identity to fit what I felt I should be or what I wanted to be. And I find that I actually do that. I have done that more than once in my life. When I get up every day and go to a 9-to-5 that I don't particularly enjoy, I'm kind of faking the funk and pretending to be this bubbly person when I really don't want to be there. I'm now finding that when I go into certain spaces that were enjoyable to me a few years or so ago, I'm pretending to want to be there. Like if I were to go out to a nightclub or someone had a house party, being around people who like to drink all the time, that's not really my vibe anymore. But when I'm in those spaces, it's like I'm trying to force myself to like it, and I'm just changing and everything's changing, but it's staying still at the same time. And I don't really know what to make of it, and I don't quite know if this makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then hey, it doesn't make sense to me either, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. But when I'm forced to sit down and be in my thoughts and just sit in silence, that's when all of this comes up, and I realize it's a buildup of things that I've kind of pushed down over the years, and now I'm at the point where it's time to rip off the band-aid. And I don't quite feel like I can be a person that gives and pours into other people until I figure those things out. I'm very much in this uncomfortable space. I feel a lot of pressure, but I also try to tell myself that diamonds are made out of pressure. I'm gonna try to use that as a motivation to be who I feel I need to be, and really just sit down and figure out what makes me happy. We make happiness a lot more difficult than it needs to be, and a lot of people think that happiness is supposed to look a certain kind of way because of the things that we've been programmed to think. So happiness for a lot of people, they think it's the fancy car, it's getting that degree, it's getting the 6-figure job, it's buying the house with the white picket fence. But then people get those things and they're not really really happy. And so the lesson that I'm teaching myself is that I need to sit down and break down what happy is. You know, when I'm praying to God and I'm like, I just want to be happy, I think we really need to understand what being happy is. And if you can't describe what happiness is to you, how is God gonna know what to bless you with? So it's about knowing yourself, knowing what you want, knowing what makes you happy for real, and then moving in the direction of that happiness. 30, y'all. This is the year something gotta shake, because I feel like I've sacrificed too much. I took my whole life. I relocated down to Atlanta. I left friends behind. I left family behind. I left my job behind, my apartment that I love. And so I'm just really, really hoping that this era in my life helps me see that it was worth it and that I'm not just sitting here feeling like a waste of space. That's really sad to say, but I've had this conversation with myself a lot of times where it's like, why am I here? What is my purpose? And it's really hard when you're just in a rut and your spirit is broken and you might be battling mental health issues, because it's really hard for you to project what a 5-year plan looks like. I know everybody says you should have a 5-year plan. For me, for a long time, it's been hard for me to even come up with a 5-year plan. Of course, I have things that I generally want to achieve, but a 5-year plan, actually having a set action plan, you know what steps you're taking, that's always been hard for me, because a lot of the times, I'm just being real, it's like, okay, how can I figure out how to make it through this day, through this week, through this month? And so much of my energy just goes into making sure I'm good mentally, or trying to be the best that I can be, and making sure I'm here and I'm present, that I often feel like I don't have the mental capacity to think about anything else. But I woke up the other day and I realized that I'm tired of being in that space, and I'm tired of feeling sorry for myself. And I could sit here and point the finger at so many people and so many experiences or challenges that I faced in my life that have brought me to this point of overthinking and trying to be a perfectionist and just being so hard on myself and being scared to take risks. But at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own healing, and we're honestly responsible for our own happiness. If I can offer any piece of advice to anybody who's still in their 20s, or if you're approaching 30, maybe you're 28, 29, take risks. That's number one. Your 20s honestly can be seen as a trial period. The perception, again, of being in your 20s is that you're expected to make mistakes, and that's supposed to be your time frame to figure things out. So try things out, and if it doesn't work, pivot. Don't stay in situations too long that aren't serving you. Don't be afraid to start over again, because being in that headspace of building resiliency, building grit, not being afraid of the unknown, that's gonna help you when you get into this era of unknown, which is your 30s plus. And the follow-up to that, truly being able to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the bad decisions that you made. Forgive yourself for tolerating disrespect and settling for less than what you deserve. Forgive yourself for not learning from your mistakes. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take accountability for mistakes that you made in the past, but understanding that beating yourself up and remaining in a headspace filled of regret, it's not gonna get you anywhere. And if you stay in that headspace, you'll look up and 10 years later, you'll be in the same spot that you were in before. Damn. All right. I think I'm done here. If you guys have not read this book, this was gifted to me by my friend Osha, and I'm so thankful for this. When Women Pray by T.D. Jakes. Whenever I'm feeling very overwhelmed with my feelings, I open up a chapter of this book, and literally the chapter resonates with what I'm feeling in that moment. When Women Pray by T.D. Jakes, very motivational. So I guess with that in mind, you know, I'm gonna continue focusing on self-care. Maybe I'll see you guys in a couple days. Maybe I'll see you next week. But when I do see you again, it's when I felt like it was right for me. 30 is here, and I'm just really trying to put myself in a space of embracing it, and I'm terrified and I don't know what's next. I'm hoping that is great, but it can't be this because I'm tired. But I hope that you got something out of this video, and if you have any words of encouragement for me, any guidance, I would so appreciate it. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and until next time, y'all, bye.